You're going to want to keep watching this video to find out which NBA players went just a little too far on the basketball court. Hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to be talking about a few times where NBA players just couldn't contain their emotions and ended up going a little too far. From assaulting somebody with a basketball to literally kissing a referee on his head. These are just some of the times where players just couldn't stay calm. We'll kick it off with a player who was able to get his point across with the referees by literally kissing them on the head. That man would be Dwight Howard during his days with the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets were lined up against the Atlanta Hawks, and Howard must have known it was a good matchup for him down low. He was putting up some big-time points while coming down with what seemed like every single rebound that flew his direction. Although that level of aggression and attack doesn't always translate to long minutes being played. Because late in the third quarter, Howard was looking at 4 fouls and was only 2 away from getting himself booted from the contest. Their shooting guard Jeremy Lamb had taken a deep 3 with the team already looking at a really big lead. It banked off the front of the rim, and Dwight tried to fly in for yet another rebound to add to his collection. Only this time, a player on the Hawks had come down with the board, and Howard accidentally clipped his arm in the air. The ref immediately whistled for a foul on Howard that would be his 5th of the contest. But instead of arguing or getting mad that he was about to sit out for the rest of the game, he slowly walked over to the referee and kissed him on the top of his head. Yes, you heard me correctly. He literally put his hands on the official's head and kissed him for getting a foul called on him. I'm not sure how I would have reacted if I was that ref, but I can imagine that I wouldn't want anybody randomly kissing me on the head, especially while I'm just trying to do my job. But hey, Dwight apparently had a completely different plan than anybody else in the NBA. Just like Carlos Boozer did a few years back. Boozer had an incident that was unlike any other in the history of the league. Boozer was on the Chicago Bulls at the time, and the team was playing the Dallas Mavericks. At this time, he was playing the power forward and center position for the team and was banging around down low to get his points. It was late in the second quarter that he actually started to hit a really nice groove and was putting up bucket after bucket. So on this play, he was backing down a member of the other team before spinning around and hitting a fadeaway type layup for 2 points. The referee to his right had whistled for a foul as well, giving him the opportunity to capitalize on an and one. Boozer was so hyped about the play that he quickly turned around and fist pumped as hard as he could. There was only one problem though. When he fist pumped, he actually punched the referee that whistled the foul on the defender. Luckily, the ref was actually super chill about the situation and was laughing all the way to the sideline about the incident. But when you look back at the film, you can see that Boozer's hand hit a place that shouldn't ever be punched. I'm sure all you guys out there can figure out what I'm talking about. It was honestly a miracle that this man was still standing as if nothing had ever happened. I'm not sure if I'd have been able to withstand that type of force down low, and yet this dude was perfectly fine. What makes the situation even weirder is that the referee didn't even punish Boozer for the mistake. No foul call, no technical, no ejection, just a simple chuckle and the game continued as usual. Nowadays though, I see people flex after a monstrous dunk and get a quick double technical, so this one's a complete shock to me. What isn't a complete shock though is what James Harden did. While Harden was the superstar for the Houston Rockets, they were locked in a tight game against the Utah Jazz. I believe it was before the actual game where Harden was walking out of the tunnel at the stadium when one fan was holding up his phone and recording him while yelling, "You're still the worst flopper in the NBA." James didn't waste any time at all before reacting to the man in the front row, slapping at his phone. The fan then got really upset that Harden had laid a hand on his personal belongings. But come on dude, you hurled out an insult just a few inches away from the man and you don't expect any kind of response? I say shame on both of them for that incident, to be honest with you. What was even more shocking though was the fact that Harden didn't receive any punishment for the incident at all. I mean, he hit the fan's phone just a few feet away from a security guard who then walked over and insisted that the fan back away and stop causing an issue. The fan just kept yelling that Harden slapped his phone, but all the guard was worried about was the man backing away from the front row and just relaxing over the situation that honestly didn't turn out to be that big of a deal. The fan then had to talk out the whole situation with about 5 security guards and some other staff members, while Harden basically got to walk away squeaky clean, though that was probably because he was the face of the Rockets, and it would not have been a good look to keep him away from the team. So I kind of understand the team's decision not to punish him, while I also understand the flack that the fan took for yelling something out in the first place.
You're still the worst flopper in the NBA.
Just stay away. Get back to your seat.
I was back
Get
here.
Back to your
He just
seat.
hit my phone.
I hit you one thing. I'm saying you going out of here, okay?
I stood right here.
Hey, we don't mind you.
Now, what the NBA didn't understand was J.R. Smith, because it didn't seem to matter how many fines they dished out to him, he just kept making dumb decision after dumb decision on the court towards both players and fans. In one game between the New York Knicks and the Dallas Mavericks, Smith checked into the game while Dirk Nowitzki was shooting a free throw. Smith bent over to try and get himself ready for action to start back up, but did something much different than everybody expected. He reached over and untied the shoe of the Mavs player who was standing to his right. While it actually sounds kind of funny, and the player didn't even mind at the time, the NBA, on the other hand, didn't find it funny. They said it was dangerous to the player and the others on the court, and that Smith was never to pull something like that ever again. They threatened to fine him thousands of dollars if he were to ignore their orders, and the expectation was that Smith completely understood and wouldn't do something like that again. Ironically, though, the very next game, the Knicks played the Houston Rockets, and Smith had the chance to refrain from his previous actions at the free throw line. Only he saw the opportunity in front of him, and I guess he just couldn't resist. He bent over and yet again untied the shoes of a Rockets player standing to his right, literally a day or two after the league had threatened to fine him for doing that in their previous game against the Mavs. The funny part here is that player was Dwight Howard, and Howard didn't want to let Smith just get away with untying his shoes like that. He reached over and tried to untie Smith's shoes the very next free throw, only he missed the laces at the first grab, and JR slapped his hand away before running back to the other side of the court to resume play. Smith probably went home that day thinking it was all fun and games and that the NBA wouldn't actually take matters into their own hands, but he would definitely be wrong on that one. The league ended up fining him a whopping $50,000 for not listening to them, which is just a ridiculous amount of money for simply untying somebody's shoes. It's my understanding that Smith was fined more money for untying another man's shoes than when Marcus Morris literally assaulted another player on the court during the middle of a game. The Knicks were blowing out the Washington Wizards early in the third quarter, and Morris was at the top of the three-point arc and was scanning the floor for another player to pass the ball to. Justin Anderson was the man defending Morris on that particular possession, and it didn't seem like he was doing anything annoying. He was kind of moving his arms and legs to stay in front of him while doing everything in his power to not let him pass the basketball to an open player. Morris, I guess, got aggravated by this for some reason and swung his elbow at Anderson's face. Justin immediately dodged the swing, but he looked over to the officials while yelling something about the swing to try and get a foul called on Morris. That seemed to enrage Morris even further, and he actually bashed Justin over the head with the basketball, knocking him back. Justin had this really confused look on his face because I don't think he really thought what just happened was actually real. Oh, but it was, and Marcus actually started walking over to Justin as if he wanted to start a fight before officials and the refs had to get themselves involved and try to split the two of them up before getting into a bigger altercation. But really though, why hit somebody over the head with a basketball and then get angry that they aren't fighting with you? So you walk over and you start yapping at them. It just doesn't make much sense to me, especially because the game that they were playing wasn't even a meaningful one where emotions were left out on the floor like in some playoff atmospheres. No, the teams were actually just playing in a preseason contest, and Morris still wasn't able to control himself. If an NBA player hitting somebody over the head with a basketball mid-game during the preseason doesn't define the last few years for the Knicks, then I don't know what does. It's been a tough time for the Knicks, but thankfully Morris wasn't banned for the year or anything like that, though he was ejected for that game. Check out the terrifying times NBA players actually fight fans.